The Grande Bouffe.
The Big Feast.
Here we are, Cole Smithey with Mike Lacy, here again to look at a film through a cultural and political prism.
Through a prism? Look at culture and politics through the prism
Of a single movie.
of a single movie. That's about the same thing.
Yeah.
We got it. What are we drinking today?
We are drinking, I should have the bottle in front of me. It's the Stone's Delicious IPA. That's the name, Delicious.
Cole is standing up to grab the beer from his couch. He can't find it. He's got it. He's returning, handing me a bottle here. Stone Delicious IPA. It's got delicious in the name, so how couldn't it be?
This is one of my new faves. It has a lemon drop and El Dorado hops, and it's 7.7%. Yummy. Really is quite delicious.
Yeah, it is really good. Yeah, I can taste the lemon in it.
Yeah, you can taste the lemon, and I think it's perfect spring and summer beer.
It's got a bunch of writing on the back. That's a strike against it in my book. Is alcohol that has a little...
Hey, now wait a minute. They might have paid a writer to do that, so...
Oh, that's true. Yeah, maybe
You
a writer.
know?
Is it by Aziz Ansari, or is he still just shilling for Chipotle?
I didn't know Aziz was shilling for Chipotle.
They just had... It was just totally lifted from his stand-up act, and they put it on one of their bags. They have a lot of things by some decent cultural figures that wind up on Chipotle bags.
Yeah, after all the problems they've had with their food product, I cannot ever, in good conscience, ever eat at Chipotle.
Funny you say that, because on quitting my job, they gave me a $75 Chipotle gift card.
Oh, that's backhanded
something. That's what I've been living on for the past 2 weeks.
Well,
So
you're not sick, so something's going well.
I'm doing great.
They're cleaning up their act a little bit,
Yeah.
perhaps on your behalf.
Yeah, just for me.
Well, you know what is for you is I chose this week's film in part because I felt like I'd really dragged you through the mud with Possession last week.
You did.
And I thought that this film by Robert Altman, The Player, might be more up your alley.
I love this movie. This was a
good.
great time. I really enjoyed it.
Good. I was hoping you'd say that.
I can't believe how young Tim Robbins looks.
I know, he's so amazing.
He just looks like a little baby on the top of 6 babies in a fancy executive suit.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the suits. This movie is such a perfect microcosm of early 90s LA. Everyone's wearing these garish colors and double-breasted suits and bad ties.
So is the idea with suits shaped like that is to show how rich you are, that you have basically 2 suits amounts of of fabric, and that you can just I don't care. A strong wind would have sent half of Los Angeles into the ocean.
I used to own a double-breasted suit. They're so boxy. Mm-hmm. They're not good-looking things, but they were quite popular in the early 90s.
I don't understand it. I loved this little window that it gave into Hollywood at the time, fashion in general at the time. But a question I have for this episode is, what's the same in Hollywood? What's always been, and what is this movie showing universally? And what is really specific to that time and no longer the case in movies that we see these days?
Wow, and you've really opened up a can of worms right there with that question. Well, let's talk a little bit about what the movie is.
Sure.
It's a straight satire, black comedy. It's a Robert Altman black comedy about Hollywood. And Robert Altman, one of the most respected auteurs in all of cinema history, long history with making films, had gone from making industrial films and documentaries, television, and then in the 60s started making, long-form narrative films.
I was watching clips of him talking about The Player, and then I saw this documentary from 57 that he'd produced on James Dean. and it presented itself as kind of the first documentary, they had to like give a preface at the beginning. This is a movie or like a motion picture like you've never seen. People will be playing themselves, not as characters, but as themselves. Like there's actual voiceover having to explain what a documentary is.
Total exploitation. They were just cashing in on James Dean's death as quickly as they could.
Yeah, I was like 57. What year did he die? Was it 55, 6?
I don't know. It was right before, not long before that film was made, and they picked Altman to be the guy to put it together.
It was at the beginning. They have a little cartoon of James Dean playing with a toy car on the ground, like in Rebel Without a Cause, and then the car zooms around, and I'm just like waiting for it to like.
That's so cheesy.
It's really garish, but that's 57. So he's going on almost 40 years at that point when this movie came out.
Yeah, he'd made a lot of movies, and of course, the thing that everyone always respects, people like Alan Rudolph, of course, owe their career to Altman, is his work with multi-characters. He's the master of multi-character.
The ensemble.
Oh my goodness, this guy can make sense of so many people. He can juggle so many characters, and there's no other filmmaker that has ever come close to doing that on a consistent basis.
I've seen a few Altman pictures, and like probably this. I'm ashamed to say this. The one I'm maybe most familiar with, he did the Prairie Home Companion movie.
Oh, right? I'm glad you brought it up, but I'm sad you brought it up. That was his last film.
That was his last film?
Yeah, he had to be replaced while he was making it because he was so ill. I think he was about 81 when he died, and that was the film that he was working on right before he died. I do have a little personal Robert Altman story. When I first moved to New York in '97, I was volunteering at the New York Film Festival, and I was fielding calls, and I got some call from some woman who was, she desperately wanted to be invited to one of the parties, and somehow I don't know how it was that world of being a volunteer at the New York Film Festival in '97 meant that I was the only male. And so it was like being the tomcat in a group of female cats. But somehow I finagled a ticket for her to the party, and we ended up going on a date in the West Village.
Oh, hey.
Just a couple of blocks, evidently, from where Altman lived. And so the date didn't go so well. I knew something was wrong when I had gotten there first. She came in, and she asked to sit in my seat because she wanted to be facing the door. Made me uncomfortable. Some
people have preferences.
Didn't bode well, right? And I acquiesced.
Sometimes they have PTSD from she might have been a Gulf War veteran or something.
Who knows? So to our right at the next table was Robert Altman with his wife having dinner, and so even though we didn't really have dinner together, we were sort of having dinner together, and we did go up and talk to him after the dinner, and he was so cordial and so polite and such a gentleman. And that was just a really fun time because, when you're in a restaurant with a celebrity and you do have that feeling that you're sharing the same air, in a way you are having dinner, with that person.
That is super cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. Really fun.
So to pull it back to the player, we were given a little bit of an overview of what it was. We want to go into a full-blown synopsis. We've been talking about trying to really open up with, for anyone who hasn't seen the movie and is for some reason interested in our opinions about it and about the world through it, just give a quick overview of what's going on with it.
So it's a Hollywood studio, and Tim Robbins' character, Griffin Mill, is...
Don't you want to be Mills? Doesn't Mills just really bug you?
Yeah, why is there no S? I think Altman knew what he was doing. Well, it's based on a book. It's based on a novel. But yeah, it is a really clever writerly thing that happens there because you think it's Mills, but it's Griffin Mill.
It's upsetting.
He's the gatekeeper. He's the guy, the producer. Is he a producer? He's what's his job
I think you
title?
call him a producer, right?
He's the guy who he gets pitched. He okays whatever scripts are
meaning someone comes in and they say like, okay, it's Ghost meets Titanic.
Exactly. The film,
There's actually a ghost meets something. That was a good line.
yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
it really roasts Hollywood for the way that it chooses what films get made. And the film opens with a great tracking shot. I was thinking a lot of Day for Night in this film because both of them open with tracking shots.
I would love to have an ongoing comparison between those two, another film about filmmaking, but very different. Even though that's also sort of a sellout movie, such a different world of filmmaking being shown there.
Yeah, very, very different. And one of the characters is commenting, the Griffin Mill's assistant, played by Fred Ward. He's great, and he's talking to this kid who's a delivery. He's like the mail guy. He's the mailroom guy who's hoping to work his way up in the studio, and he's telling him about Wells and how his dad worked with Wells on Touch of Evil, and how the film starts with this long tracking shot, 6-minute tracking shot, and the kid's like, "Really, 6 minutes?" And he goes,
three and a half.
Yeah. Right. And this film, I didn't time the opening sequence.
It must have been like 6 minutes.
But I'm guessing 6 minutes, and it's just beautiful. He tracks, so you're seeing inside Mill's office through the window, and you're hearing the pitch.
What impressed me the most, as someone who's had a bunch of audio problems on things I've been doing lately, is the audio that was being captured in that. And it didn't seem like it was dubbed afterwards. You can kind of understand. It seems like the most difficult thing ever to choreograph having people walk through a scene, have a conversation, go out, and then cut over to someone else. And you can imagine having multiple ADs hiding behind walls, waving to people to keep going. But how you hide microphones in this, how you capture it so precisely and time up the people delivering their lines, that to me seems like a real magic trick.
Yeah, and the film is beautifully shot. It's a gorgeous movie to look at. Let's get a little more into what it is, what's going on. So this is the producer who, if he doesn't make 150 phone calls a day, he's not doing his job. The studio only greenlights 12 films a year of the...
You said 50,000 or something submissions?
Some huge number, yes. Many thousands. So essentially his job is to say no. And he's good at it because he listens. He's not giving anyone short shrift. He'll listen to the pitch, knowing full well that the answer is going to be no. And he pisses off somebody that he says no to.
So the conflict is that he is getting these hate letters in the mail in the form of these ominous postcards that are all on the front. They're classic Hollywood scenes, and on the back are things about how it's funny because there are no overt threats straightforwardly. They're kind of quippy lines, and he's getting them constantly. But
then he finally does get the death threat. He does get the real death when the postcards unfold.
Oh, right.
And it says, "I'm going to kill you." So he does. So Griffin's getting.
It's definitely threatening the whole time. I was just saying, for a while, it was like making sort of.
He's getting these threatening postcards from a screenwriter.
Yeah, he seems
a rejected screenwriter who just is probably would have been a Trump supporter.
That's the sense I get.
If he were around today.
It seems like a pretty well cultured in the canon of films. But so in any case, he tracks down who he thinks it is. He follows this person
who is played by
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Amazing. Vincent D'Onofrio is so great as this quirky, introverted,
super hyper intellectual, intense, wannabe big time screenwriter.
And we know he's hyper intellectual because Griffin tracks him down at a screening of Bicycle Thief.
Yeah, he's at the Bicycle Thief. And in the meantime,
in Pasadena,
which I don't really know my LA geography, but it's apparently Pasadena is something is a very much culturally different, specific thing to LA.
Evidently,
can you break this down for me?
Yeah, I think it's quite a drive from LA to Pasadena.
Yeah.
It's a little work to get there.
So he tracks down the screenwriter, and in the meantime, spies on his girlfriend.
Well, that's how he tracks him down.
Yeah.
Yeah, he cleverly comes up with the guy's phone number, and
well, because you put it on your script, and you hand out your script, and it's built into the screenwriting software to this day that it puts your address and your phone number on it.
And he's pulling out the now dated but famous Bacon's directory that has everybody in it, as does this film. If you don't know who were the big actors in 1992, this is a crash course. You'll know everybody who was anybody in Hollywood in the early 90s because they're all in this movie.
It's really insane. Like the just the number of as themselves at the end of this movie is mind-blowing.
You've got everybody. There's Cher, John Cusack is in it, Louise Fletcher, Terry Garth. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Scott Glenn, Jeff Goldblum.
There's some deleted scenes where Patrick Swayze and Jeff Bridges had these extended parts where they're wearing like scrubs. They're like never explained. And Patrick Swayze's doing he's like golfing. It might have been like a MASH reboot that they were just like alluding to them being in or something. A joke that I loved and was so. So let's keep going on with the plot, but then like just talk about what we're seeing in it. I want to bring up one joke from the opening scene, is that he's pitching a sequel to The Graduate, which is supposed to be like a satirical. That would be so crazy if they did that. They did that like 5 years ago with Jennifer Aniston and Kevin Costner, right? Do you remember this?
I don't.
It was like they made it kind of meta. No, it's like Jennifer Aniston goes home with Kevin Costner and realizes The Graduate is like based on him. It's like a spiritual sequel. It's just so gross, and like this is one of those satires, and there's a lot of them that you could name. Another podcast has brought up how like The Candidate has become basically no longer a satire of politics, and this is in some ways, if it was a satire at that time, and I feel like the closer you were into the Hollywood inner circle, the more you know, like, no, this is a documentary. But
well,
this truly is not.
And by the way, that is the screenwriter Buck Henry of the original Graduate.
Oh, that's Buck Henry.
That's Buck Henry who's pitching The Graduate too, and that's how meta this movie gets. This movie was meta before there was such a thing as meta. And now everything's meta. But in '92, I don't think people were really tuned into to meta.
It's such an interesting tone because it's very critical, and so I think this is a good time to keep going on with what's happening in the plot, which is that Griffin meets up with the screenwriter. He tries to make nice with him, and basically offers to take a meeting with him. That he's making it seem like
no promises, but he's going to give him a shot.
He's going to give him a shot. Clearly, just trying to stop having his life threatened.
I mean, objectively, Griffin's doing the right thing. He's trying to
for the wrong reasons, but like, yeah, and at the end of the day, like, this story sounded fucking stupid. Like, it's not like I wasn't convinced that Vincent D'Onofrio was like
he seemed like a real wannabe hack.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to give away a plot point.
Go for it,
because I think this plot point can and should be given away, and that is some shoving happens, and
this happens. That happens. Little things go down.
Griffin accidentally shoves him off of this ledge, and he dies. The screenwriter dies.
No, well, he might shove him by accident, but he holds his face under the water, in the gutter water.
Well, at that point, the guy's he's got to finish the job. The guy's out, and at that point, he figures, now.
Oh yeah, that's really like Hollywood double talk. Well, I mean, it already started. It was a lawsuit in the making. I just had to finish it up and make a clean getaway. And he's, if you have any doubt of if Griffin is. I think Griffin is somewhat sympathetic at the beginning, but like he thinks very quickly to pull out his watch, to take his wallet out, to pull the money out of his wallet, and to make it look like it was like a mugging, and he breaks the window with fingerprints on it.
But he kicks the door closed. He kicks the guy's door closed and leaves a dent in the door. So any good detective would be able to match the shoe with that heel print in the door. It never comes up in the movie, just something I noticed.
Any detective better than Whoopi Goldberg, you mean?
Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg with her tampons.
Coming straight off her previous detective job in Theodore Rex. Is that what it's called? I think this movie where she had a buddy cop film with a live action dinosaur.
I don't know that one.
Whew. She was coming right off her Oscar nom.
I'm going to be generous and say that this is the only film or only performance by Whoopi Goldberg where I didn't feel like she ruined the movie. It's a personal.
I thought you were say the other way around.
Personal problem for me.
You didn't feel like she ruined the movie.
I think that anytime I ever see Whoopi Goldberg in a movie, she just plays herself and she just ruins the whole thing.
Ouch.
She stinks up every movie
That's
she's
harsh.
ever in. Yeah, it is harsh.
What about Sister Act?
I never saw it.
Sister Act 2.
Well,
yeah, you're like, oh,
if I didn't see one,
I actually only saw 2, and she really stunk it up.
Nice, I'm not surprised.
Cole coming down hard on the Whoopi.
She's much better on The View.
Let me.
And she gets to play with her tampons again. Something evidently is a running theme for her.
The Little Rascals movie.
I didn't see that one.
She plays Buckwheat's mother.
Oh.
And there's a line where like, Buckwheat, your mom is here, and he goes, Whoopi.
Oh.
That's a real gem of a remake right there.
All right. Well, now that I've spoken poorly of the Whoopi, I do want to give some shout outs to some really great cameo performances. Dean Stockwell's amazing, but Richard E. Grant kills.
So he's a screenwriter. That's the partner of Dean Stockwell.
Right. That's right.
I feel like I could even do that pitch because he does it so many times in that movie.
So brilliant.
We open.
Yeah.
On a penitentiary. It's raining. People, protesters, standing outside with lighters, lit up like little Japanese lanterns.
He doesn't care that Griffin said 25 words or less.
That's so funny. That's so funny. He's like, Griffin's like 25 words or less, and he just launches into opening scene.
And that's if I was going to quibble, I would say I would really like to have seen one pitch done properly in the movie, just for the fun of it. I would like to see somebody do a 25-word pitch. I do script consultation, and I recently had a client, and same thing that I always tell anyone is, okay, so give me and I'm more generous. I say 35 words. And most people they have mental blocks. They can't or won't. They just refuse to do it.
Well, I've noticed we haven't given any sort of overview of this movie. So as an exercise, can we do the player in 35 words or less?
All right, you go first.
Okay,
you called it.
Okay. I'm laying down the gauntlet.
Okay.
I'm not going to count on my fingers, but I'll just try to do it quick.
I'll try and keep track. You just talk.
Okay. Big shot producer type gets death threats, solves it problematically, and oh shit! Now this is tough. I'm.
Well, it takes a little effort. All right. Let me try.
You got it.
All right. So now
I'm thinking about like numbers and stuff like that. But I could definitely.
So Hollywood studio producer bumps off rejected screenwriter and has to work his way out of it.
Yeah.
That's 12 words.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really what happens.
So remember at the end?
I mean, if you wanted to get a little juicier, you could say Hollywood studio exec kills rejected screenwriter that he rejected, takes up with said screenwriter's girlfriend, and
has to fight a murder rap.
There you go. Perfectly done. See, there it is. 25 words or less. There it is. Mm-hmm. You've got your inciting incident. You already know what the inciting incident is, which is great because he kills the guy. There it is. That's the thing that sends him 180 degrees into the direction of the story. Mm-hmm. And the crisis decision, now that's where things get a little muddy. I don't know if this movie plays by the Robert McKee story program of inciting incident, crisis decision, because I wouldn't say that Griffin Mill is responsible for making the crisis decision. This is a film that doesn't really fit that mold so well. I don't think that he consciously, the only conscious thing that you could say that he does is that he he goes deeper into the relationship with the girlfriend. The
Yeah,
screenwriter's
he
girlfriend.
does. It's definitely like the conflict at the beginning is like in the heat of passion, and another subplot that we haven't hit on is that he is a rival.
You know what? That is the crisis decision. That is the I just said the crisis decision. He goes deeper with her, literally and figuratively.
In that sex scene, you mean, where he tells her? Yeah, and
that's the crisis decision.
So what?
For all you screenwriting people, when you watch the movie, you'll be able to dissect and tweeze out exactly what we mean and how that is the correct.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm
like pretty like impoverished in my knowledge of these screenwriting terms and tropes, but what you can see is definitely going on is that there's like a counterpoint between what should happen in a Hollywood story and what's happening in this movie, and it kind of lays the framework out for you. In Griffin tells the woman he's seeing like what it is that makes a Hollywood film successful, and then you can compare it to what's happening, and especially at the end where you have a sense that there's a happy ending and that it's worked out for him. But you can see like the hollowness in it, and that he is so much even more heartless than at the beginning, and seems like a bit of like a shell of himself. That what is a quote unquote Hollywood ending is a lot more heartless and destructive and inhumane than what Hollywood thinks it's saying when it has like a Hollywood ending. So it's cool that it kind of builds in that structure for you to analyze it within itself. It's a very tightly woven, fascinating structure.
Well, let's shore up what you were saying in the beginning, the questions that you asked about, how this stacks up. Hollywood of 1992 stacks up against Hollywood of 2016, and I would say, in this picture, the commentary, the satirical commentary that Altman is making is about the process of how films are made in Hollywood and what the expectations are and how things are twisted to the Hollywood formula, which, as you've alluded to, revolves around having a happy ending, having a lot of stars, not really any concern for realism. And Hollywood has digressed so far. You can look at this film and say, things were so much better in 1992 because now all Hollywood is concerned with is it a superhero movie or is it a sequel or a reboot?
Right, and again with that that Graduate thing, which that's so funny that it's Buck Henry. I didn't realize that is that there were seeds of that people saw. It's like, all right, if it's not a pre-sold franchise, then we won't even have this conversation. We don't know that it's already a success, which is such a conservative thing.
Sure, today if somebody came in with that concept, if Buck Henry walked in your door and said Graduate 2, you'd say done deal. You wouldn't even ask for the 25
because they
words.
did make that movie. That's what's crazy to me is they made that movie.
Now you're going to make me hunt down this bad movie and watch it.
It's like what is it called?
But fear not, listeners. We will. I promise you, we will not dissect that movie on Le Grande Bouffe because that's not what we do on the Big Feast.
It's more of a how did this get made? That's a podcast for shitty movies.
That's for another.
It's a podcast entirely.
Yeah, I'll give some wannabe podcaster an idea. We have rights to Le Grande Bouffe, but you could have Amuse Bouche.
Amuse Bouche.
Because that's clearly what that movie would be. Although your bouche might not be so amused.
So how have movies changed? One is like in the 90s you had these weird prestige pictures, like the one that they're making, the one that Peter Gallagher, who like that's a through line that we haven't hit on, is this rival critic. There's sort of an all about Eve like plot line of
everybody at the studio is in fear of their jobs, and not the least of which Griffin Mill. He's more concerned about losing his job than he is about going to prison.
Well, that's what kind of incited his rage. And
he is a narcissist. He is an asshole. There's no question about it.
But there is something more likable about him than Peter Gallagher, who just honestly comes off as a bit more confident and put together. And like if you're gonna play that game, if you're gonna be a player in it, Peter Gallagher seems much better at it.
Well, his character goes to AA meetings
meet people
because that's where you meet everyone.
Yeah, no, you see, like he says like I'm on the way to an AA meeting, but like put him on the phone, tell me the pitch. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you had an alcohol problem. He's like, I don't, but it's a great place to meet people.
Oh, they're new level of sleaze every day. You think Harvey Weinstein has anything on this guy? Well, they're probably in the same tub, but what can you do?
But the prestige picture that Griffin pitches to him, and just to watch him like ruin.
I shouldn't besmirch Weinstein. Weinstein did great things for cinema, and I kind of feel bad about the way things went for him because he really was into doing great prestige pictures and in the 90s and movies like Howard's End and stuff. And,
So what
those days are gone.
So what is the context of like this movie that they're pitching? And the one I was doing a bit of the pitch of it's Bruce Willis is the DA that falls in love with
Julia Roberts.
With Julia Roberts, and when he winds up
we didn't drop Lyle Lovett's name, but he's the main detective on the case.
Lyle Lovett's great in this movie.
He's really good, much better than Whoopi Goldberg.
Was he with Julia Roberts at this point? Right? Was what? Lyle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody was with everybody. Susan Sarandon's in the movie.
Yeah.
And of course, they were Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon. I'm so sorry that those guys broke up because they were kind of the picture perfect. They were the poster couple for lasting relationships for a long time, Hollywood relationships, and sadly they.
I remember
broke
Susan
up.
Sarandon in it. What is she doing in it though? Is she just at a party?
She's
or something?
only at the end. I think she shows up to witness the execution.
Oh, she's in the movie. So
Right.
that's the prestige picture of that time. And so my question is like, what, like, does that movie exist anymore? Like, would any like serious movie through Hollywood has this sort of like kind of like faux like art house element to it? Like the series.
Well, or real art house elements. I mean, movies like Howard's End, those were great art house films that were going through Weinstein.
As things that come through like Hollywood, like I feel like the equivalent is what was the Turing movie that came out last year? That movie was garbage in my opinion.
Oh, you didn't like the Alan Turing movie? I liked it, but you're right. I mean, certainly there was a lot of fluff and.
Yeah, it was just a paint by numbers and pick your disability like for the main character kind of.
That's true.
And I feel like that's kind of the version of these prestige like studio movies that you get. But you're right for the most part.
And they only come out in August and September when it's Oscar season. You're never going to see those movies any other time of the year.
You remember in Seinfeld, they're always going to movies, and they're always like these like over the top prestige movies, or like these kind of ridiculous action movies. There's one called Chunnel. That's big. It's like the movies that they're making in this remind me of those movies. Obviously, that makes sense that they're going to in Seinfeld. But you're right. Hollywood is preoccupied now with these pre-sold franchises to an extreme degree. And to see kind of anything else, even like anything like the...
Well, Money Monster is the first one to come along this year. And that's going to be shown at Cannes next week. That's the Jodie Foster film with George Clooney.
Like executive produced by Bernie Sanders. I made that up.
I like that. I wish that were... If that were true, I'd be much more excited to see it.
It doesn't seem amazing, but...
No, I'm sure that one will be dead and gone in 2 weeks. That's not going to last very long at the cinemas where evidently the only thing that Hollywood thinks America wants to see are Marvel superhero movies.
So, I mean, like, what that progression says to me is a conservatism in taking chances on anything. So, a lot of this movie is about people hearing a pitch.
Well, it's lowest common denominator. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's only about the buck. There's no concern for making a film.
And like I'm not gonna say like I don't enjoy like some of these superhero movies.
I am. I think they suck. How many do I need to see? Sam Raimi's...
I enjoy some of them.
Yeah, but here's the point. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 set the high watermark in 2004. Yeah. It's been 12 years.
I'm not gonna say Spider-Man 2 is the best one, but I'm not even interested in like picking.
Well, you should be because it's true. I would put Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 up against any superhero movie that has come out since. Why do I need to see that? And also the generations are flipping. By now, there's been a turnover of generations since then. And I think that obviously there's a ceiling to everything. I said that fanboy culture was dead, 5 years ago. I think the culture is dead. It's just that the money isn't out of it yet.
Well, I mean, like, That's the whole thing to get into. Yeah, I mean, like
That's another subject.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Maybe we'll do Spider-Man 2.
Maybe we'll do Spider-Man 2. Okay. Because you get into Superman, Batman, which everyone hates and yet made more money than God. But yeah, just pull it back around to the player it's both I think in that you have people who are clearly not looking to make art. Despite what Griffin says at the preservation ceremony, he's not trying to make art. They're not trying to make art. He's looking for what is the conservative most bang for your buck, and he gives out a list of it. It has to have a happy ending. It has to have violence. It has to have tension. It has to have all of these things, and these are all things that were lacking in the script by Vincent D'Onofrio.
I just want to say that Aaron Sorkin learned everything that he knows from Robert Altman.
I feel that. and I'll say that there's some stuff that he didn't learn that he should have.
And rumors are always true.
Wait.
That's a quote from the player.
No, the movie's called Rumor Has It.
There you go.
That's what it's called.
There you go.
That's The Graduate 2. They actually made that movie. Rumor Has It. And it's like...
Are you serious? That's the name of the thing?
Yeah, Rumor Has It. Oh my god. Do we have to end there? Is that...
I guess, yeah, you're going to get
That's our button right there.
There it is. There it is. Well, thank you all for listening to Le Grande Bouffe, The Big Feast with Mike Lacy and myself, Cole Smithey.